What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hopefully you had a good weekend overall. Had some fun here. Did the Spawn cast, did a quick Newswave weekend review. Checked out some games on the Switch. It should be releasing this week. I think there's one out tomorrow and then one out later on in the week. So make sure you check those videos out if you missed them. Of course, we have a bunch of stuff to go back through from this weekend. So if you missed any news over the weekend, we'll hopefully get you caught up here. We have a very interesting Pokemon image that was leaked, or I guess leaked or sent out, that appears to be, according to sources, a picture of the Switch version of Pokemon. However, a lot of us are pretty skeptical after seeing this because, well, if it's correct, we might be a little disappointed with what we're getting. So for today, guys, let's get started. So over the weekend, this image was kind of being built up to being released, and this was from PokeJungle talking about it. Pixelpar talked about it, and then eventually Pixelpar did release it on Twitter. Now, when we saw this image, it was supposedly an image that had been making the rounds behind the scenes on Chinese message boards, where they generally talk about a lot of the Pokemon leaks that are going on for the Nintendo Switch version. If you've heard about any of these Pokemon leaks, whether it's starter leaks or anything like that, where we're not really sure, generally it's been floating around those forums, and then it tends to make its way out, get translated, and put out for the world to see. Well, this image right here was put out by Pixelpar, saying it was the image that's really been passed around by everyone there. Now, when you look at this image, you might be thinking what I thought. It looks like the 3DS version, or at least a 3DS version of a Pokemon game that maybe is loaded into an emulator. Of course, if you take a Pokemon game from the 3DS and you load it into an emulator, you can make it look pretty good. You can up the resolution, and believe it or not, the assets in those Pokemon games are already pretty high resolution. They were designed to kind of be future-proof, probably for this event here with the Switch, so that they don't have to completely redo all of the models. If you put them into something like Citra, for example, which is an open-source 3DS emulator, you can actually make everything look really good, like almost, I would say, console level, high-definition 1080p, and it scales really well. And that's kind of what a lot of people are seeing this image as. Oh, this is just loaded in an emulator, in a Pokemon emulator. Well, a lot of people are pretty convinced about that, but a lot of the sources that this is coming from seem to think that this might be an image from the Switch version of Pokemon, which makes people wonder, are we thinking a little too highly of this Switch Pokemon game coming out? Because we kind of hear about them trying to reinvent the wheel for Pokemon, changing the battle system maybe, changing the way the game looks. But what happens, and I really want to hear from the Pokemon veterans, the people who have bought a Switch, pretty much anyone who's looking forward to this Pokemon jump to the home console with the Switch. What happens if this game comes out and it's kind of like what happened with Monster Hunter Double Cross, where it ended up just being an up-resed version of a 3DS game, essentially? What happens if this game comes out and it's pretty much status quo? It's the standard battle system. It looks like the 3DS version, just, upscaled, up-resed, so it does look better, but it's really not a big new experience, and it kind of plays just like the 3DS versions, just moved to the Switch. I want to know if people would be disappointed by that, because it seemed like there was this, when that image came out, there was this mild reality check kind of setting in for some people that maybe that is what they've been working on, just a safe version, as you will, of Pokemon coming to the Switch. Now, I said a lot of people are skeptical, and you should be, because we haven't heard anything from Nintendo, we haven't seen anything from the Pokemon Company. We like to believe we're getting a direct ahead of E3, but this image has really wavered some hope from a lot of people with this Pokemon game being this big change to Pokemon. Now, they would still sell a lot if it came out and that's what it was. It was just the standard status quo Pokemon. But I think people would be disappointed. I would be disappointed. I've talked to people who would also be disappointed. I just want to see what they can do with something like the Switch, and maybe not leave some of the power that's there. I mean, it's not the most powerful system, but compared to the 3DS, it's amazingly more powerful, obviously. I'd like to see them kind of take advantage of that and maybe take a chance on the way the game plays, just to see what they can do. So I need to hear from you guys. Would you be disappointed if it turned out it was basically just like the 3DS version, like this image may be showing? Or are you more along the lines of, you know what, that's fine, I like Pokemon how it is, and really that's what I want on the Switch, just a better looking version of the 3DS game, same battle system, maybe extra Pokemon, different places to explore? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Next up, let's talk about more gameplay footage that has come out from the prototype version of Prey 2. Now, if you're unaware, Prey, as most of us know, was a reboot of the original Prey series that was back on the 360. It was a game I actually really liked. I thought it was really cool. The opening is one of the most memorable openings you'll ever see, where you're kind of in like a bar and Don't Fear the Reaper starts playing on the jukebox, and then aliens start like transporting things up into the air, and it was really cool. So naturally, when we heard that Prey 2 was in development, which was not too long after that actually, we got pretty excited. And then we even saw it was shown off a ton to different developers and different media outlets, and it was in the news quite a bit until it was eventually canceled back, I think, man, it went on to like 2013, 2014. And then, of course, last year we got the rebooted Prey that came out on all systems, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It came out. And it got critically acclaimed, but it didn't sell that well. However, the wonder and the curiosity about Prey 2, the one that got canceled, has always been there. We heard about the crazy storyline and possible ending from Eurogamer a little while ago, and now we actually got straight up footage of the game in action on Twitter. Now, what you're seeing here is from Andrew Borman on Twitter. They simply took to Twitter and said, "Seems like a good day to post a short video. I was sent from Human Head Games, canceled Prey 2. And this was a week ago, actually, March 23rd. It started making the rounds, and then everybody started looking at it and saying, wow, this looked actually pretty good after hearing about the ending and everything here. You know, maybe they looked at it and they said this might be a little too generic. Maybe they couldn't get it to the finish line, or maybe they had a better idea with the rebooted Prey that we ended up getting. It's hard to say what happened. Maybe there was some internal politics going on. It's something I'd like to hear. It's a story I'd like to hear about if anyone ever wants to take up that task and see what happened exactly, because the game appears to have entered alpha stages, and it, based on this video and some other things we've heard in interviews, it seems like it was progressing pretty well and getting close to the end. So I'm not sure what happened, but it sounds like we'll be getting more and more video footage of Prey 2 as we go along, and maybe that's a puzzle that we eventually can piece together. It's hard to say, but I look forward to seeing more about this game and hearing about what happened. Next up, let's talk about a game that was strangely announced on April Fool's Day. This was yesterday. It was Arc System Works. We've talked about Arc System Works before. Of course, they worked on Dragon Ball FighterZ, and we started to get to know them a little more with some other fighting games, but they specifically showed interest in the Switch when it was around. They were already working on Dragon Ball FighterZ. They've talked about, of course, possibly bringing it over and everything with Bandai Namco, but they did announce a new RPG that they're bringing out in Japan currently. It could be localized outside of Japan, but it is coming to the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch. They put out a bunch of still shots and everything, just like concept art it seemed like, but this game, it's a dungeon RPG called Wizards Symphony, coming to the PlayStation 4 and Switch in Japan 2018, and it is coming from an older game they did, Wizards Harmony, that first launched back in 1995 on the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. But the biggest thing here is I don't really know why people are announcing things on April Fool's Day, because some outlets actually reported on this because they did it during a live stream that I actually managed to catch. Strangely, it was getting posted up on different forums, and I went over and watched it for a bit. It was this 24-hour live stream or something they were doing. It was very weird. But they did announce it, and a lot of us thought, oh, maybe this is just an April Fool's joke. Maybe they're like, oh, we're bringing back this old IP. Hey, look, we're bringing it back. Oh, April Fool's. No, they just happened to announce it on the day where no one ever takes anything online seriously. So don't announce stuff on April Fool's Day, I guess. Some outlets actually put up the news and then took it down, saying we have to verify that this is correct and this is actually happening. It's happening. So I guess look forward to more information, but it is an RPG currently going to the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch. Next up, let's talk about another leak, I guess you could say, that was deleted later on. And this comes from Nintendo of Italy. They put up this post that shows DK or Donkey Kong there with 2 open bananas and 1 that's closed. And it does translate to there's no 2 without 3, which immediately made people think, okay, there must be a third Donkey Kong game coming. Of course, we had Donkey Kong Country Returns, then we had Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. Now I guess we're getting ready for the third part of the series, I guess the trilogy, whatever they want to call it. Because, of course, back on the Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong 1, 2, and 3, well, there's no 2 without 3, which tells us that maybe there is another Donkey Kong game coming possibly at E3. Tropical Freeze was a great game, and it didn't sell the best on the Wii U, although for its small install size, it sold well enough, I'd say, and they're bringing it to the Switch now. So, what do people immediately think? This must be Retro Studios' new game. Now, it's hard to believe that Retro Studios would have spent the last 4 years working on another Donkey Kong game. Now, it's completely possible. It's not like it's not something that's completely off the table here, but I think it would disappoint a lot of people to hear about all these cool things that Retro Studios is teasing on their Twitter account for a while there over a year ago, and then they show up at E3 with just another Donkey Kong game. Now, it's very possible that Retro could have been working on Donkey Kong and another game that they're going to show off, but I think Donkey Kong could have been probably worked on by another internal studio, and Retro could continue working on something that they want to, hopefully a new IP. However, this tease that was also deleted, by the way, so it wasn't left up, which kind of tells us they probably weren't supposed to post it, but they did. And it also brings up the question, how much do these social media managers actually know, which probably isn't as much as people seem to think. Like, they seem to think they know everything, and they usually don't. They're told what to tweet, and then they tweet it out. This could have been a scheduled tweet that was set up to go out like way in advance, like way later or something. Hard to say, but man, that is a telling piece of promo art saying there's a third Donkey Kong game more than likely coming. I'm wondering if fans would be disappointed, would be annoyed if Retro Studios showed up and said, hey, we're making a Donkey Kong game, get ready. I think I would be, because I would want to see what Retro Studios can do on their own without any direction given to them by Nintendo or anything, saying, hey, you've done a great job in the past with us. Let's see what you can do on your own. We'll give you the resources, the funds to do it. And you just go out and you make your own original game, original IP that we can then push. And let's see what they have. I'd rather them do that rather than be kind of, pushed in a certain IP and direction with something like Donkey Kong. Sure, they can do a great job with it. I'd rather see something new and see something interesting from them that they can do on their own. Either way, I'm sure we're going to find out a lot of these answers at E3. As Bill Trinan even said, there's more announcements to come for E3 leading up to it. So maybe we'll see some kind of direct for Pokemon coming up. I don't know if we'll see one for just Donkey Kong or Retro's IP. I think Retro's IP is something they want to save, or at least Retro Studios' project. That's something they surely want to save for E3 as a way to close it out or just show it, and then we get a lot of details at the treehouse. Keep in mind, going into E3 last year, we didn't know anything about Metroid, and then we got 2 Metroid games at E3. So who knows what we'll see here at this point. It's impossible to predict these things. What could Retro be working on? Is it another Donkey Kong game? Is it something new? E3 is not too much further away, so honestly, I'm just ready to get to June and see what we got here. Finally, in our last bit of news, Nintendo did put out their lineup for PAX East coming up this weekend. That's April 5th to the 8th. And they talked about some of the games that will be shown off. The big ones seem to be, of course, Wolfenstein 2 will be playable there. So if you want to check it out and see what it plays like, you can go there to their booth, check it out. The other big one that people were pointing out was Dark Souls Remastered. That will also be there. You should be able to play it, or they'll at least be showing gameplay of it in action, which is something people are very curious about. Sony and Microsoft will also be there with games. I believe Ace Combat is going to be shown off there. I really want to see that one. I'll have to see if they do anything other than a teaser trailer. But a lot of people are curious about Dark Souls and Wolfenstein 2 on the Switch. Crash Bandicoot will also be there if you want to see how that plays. So if you're going to PAX East, check out the booth and just see how some of these games run. Specifically Wolfenstein 2. That's going to be the one that people really take a look at. Dark Souls Remastered, but definitely Wolfenstein 2. Looks like they have a full lineup, as you're seeing here with this list. So you have quite a few things, including Hyrule Warriors, Definitive Edition, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. They have a pretty packed lineup here. Dead Cells is another one to check out. Nice indie game that was on Steam and did well there. So make sure you stop by the booths and check things out this weekend at PAX East. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is this Pokemon image that got put out there, it's floating around, it's been floating around, been described by many people on these Chinese forums and everything, and now it's out there. Do you think this Pokemon game going to the Switch is going to be essentially a higher resolution 3DS version with new Pokemon, maybe new worlds to explore? Or do you think they really are going to do something crazy and go all in with Pokemon, change it up completely like how Zelda Breath of the Wild changed up a lot of stuff about Zelda? Do you think that's what they're going with, or do you think they're going with something safe? Let me know, guys. This is a very interesting topic to a lot of people. And also let me know what you think about Prey 2, and maybe you were around during the build-up. What do you think happened there? And what do you think caused it to be canceled? What do you think about the gameplay that we see now? Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.